Good morning or good afternoon, gang, actually. So normally I do my headlines from around the globe with the fancy music and all that on a Monday afternoon. Well, I did that on Sunday afternoon because I actually wanted to read something else on Monday, but I was waiting for the most recent report. I can't see a thing like this. Okay. It was sunny this morning, then it got cloudy, and you leave your sunglasses on, you can't see. This is the latest State Department releases. This is all publicly available headlines. What they do a compilation of information that's relevant to those of us who are trying to pay attention here. This is more from the corporate side than from the mainstream media, but it is a compilation of some mainstream media and some other sources. And what I'm noticing is a lot of instability in these small and mid-sized economies. And that's something I pointed out in the past when Sri Lanka and a couple others were having issues. I'm like, that's eventually going to make its way to the bigger countries, which it did. Not because I'm clairvoyant, it's simply the pattern of numbers. And, you know, as an engineer, that's something I look for, is number patterns, trends. So if you're paying attention, you don't have to be an engineer to do this. If you pay attention and think about it, it's pretty straightforward. So, for instance, Madagascar, opposition denounces an illegitimate electoral process. This is from Africa News. And I find this interesting. Madagascar is not a big country, right? But there's a lot of electoral issues, election type issues in a lot of countries. As a matter of fact, up until the attack, Israel was about to indict Netanyahu, and all of a sudden here's this attack, and it gelled Israel, but not pissed everyone else off at him. So creating chaos is a tool of warfare, okay? Even before wars are actually declared or shots are actually fired, being able to cause chaos within the ranks of other countries or within the borders of other countries is a tool. So, you know, it's interesting to see this. At the same time, Niger's ousted president is with his family and is doing well after claims the country's new military rulers this week that he had tried to escape. So they basically stuck the previous president in jail. Sound familiar? A lot of this kind of stuff. Zimbabwe is struggling with a cholera outbreak. This is Al Jazeera. Zimbabwe has been struggling to contain a spread of cholera, and the government, with the government announcing measures amid fears of a repeat of the 2008 outbreak that sparked a national emergency. Now, this is something interesting. Granted, not something for the Western world per se, but if you have a lot of outages, you have a lot of powers taken out, the water treatment plants will go down, and cholera will become an issue. Cholera will kill people. This is not oh no, it's a Rona. And really, you can't really immunize against this shit, right? It's a bacteria, goes in your stomach and it screws you up. It is treatable, but it's nasty and it spreads fast. So, but going back to the election issues, East Asia and the Pacific, Indonesia, this is the Associated Press. Indonesia's top courts rejected an effort to block presidential candidates who are over 70 or implicated in human rights abuses, clearing the path for a septuagenarian former general ultra-nationalist campaign. That's crazy, right? Basically, they tried to set an age limit and it got shot down. But Indonesia's courts are set up differently from ours. They're not three separate branches. They kind of mingle. Japan's ruling party loses a special election in a blow to Kishida. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida underscored his plan to return some tax revenues to the public, fund more handouts for those on low income, and extend energy subsidies in a speech after his party lost a special election. A lot of election issues. And remember, it's not just our election next year. UK, Israel just had there are a lot of elections in the next 16 months. So watch those electoral type election issues, because that's a great way to foment discord, to foment problems. Now in Europe, More than 1,600 migrants arrive in the Spanish Canary Islands. Now, that's not necessarily a strategic place, but it speaks to the large, and this is from the Associated Press, it speaks to large groups of migrants that are not necessarily being vetted, showing up in places that are not ready to handle them, right? Eagle Pass, Texas is a great example. That's a small city. Right now, 10%, maybe 15% of its population are illegal immigrants that are waiting to be processed. The difference is the city of Eagle Pass can request state troopers and National Guard. Canary Islands, they're gonna have to like send soldiers there. Like it's an island, right? It's isolated. So one boat carried 320 people just on the one boat. It also speaks to a larger issue that because of the instability in the Middle East around the Mediterranean, people are desperate. And I promise you, for every one that makes it somewhere, you know, to US or Spain or Italy, there's probably another one or two that die. They either get killed, they get drowned, they get murdered, whatever. So that also creates instability when you add large segments of population to a nation that's not ready to handle it. And again, we've always talked about, you don't know who's coming in. It could be a bad actor. United Kingdom, another UK migrant barge sparks debate on asylum seeker treatment. A small seaside town in the south coast of England, home to a giant migrant barge, has once again found itself at the heart of the British debate regarding asylum seekers. This is the Euro News. You're seeing a lot of population moves, a lot of introduction of third party of unknown third party immigrants, I guess you can say, coming in not in the proper way. They're just showing up on a barge, just showing up on boats, and they're just becoming a problem. And this speaks to a larger instability between the election issues I just read about and the large migrant groups. So it's not just the US, it's not just Canada. Canada has problems as well. We're seeing it in Europe, we're seeing it in Spain and the UK and Italy. This is an ongoing thing. And what I guess is a hidden concern for me is, what if you have sleeper cells in all these places all at once? That would be a great way to screw up NATO, is to just start shooting up Walmarts or Aldi's or whatever, all at the same time, all over the Western world, right? That's a huge resource draw. And that would be a great time, while we're looking at Ukraine and looking at Israel, go do something like that. There's a book that says China is trying to drag the US into 4 wars in order to take Taiwan. We got Ukraine, there's one. Israel is 2. The Israel-Hamas thing. You do one internally, right? Cause an internal issue. There's 3, and then hit Taiwan, there's 4. So if the book is correct, and I've only read parts of it, if the book is correct, then that plan is almost executed. And that to me is concerning. Again, this is geopolitical hypothesis. This is not necessarily guaranteed, but it's something for us to pay attention to. Remember, all of these acts will affect supply chain. It will affect food. It will affect the availability of product, as I mentioned in this morning's live stream, your medicine, your food, clothing. These are things you want to plan out now before things escalate. At the very least, it's going to create an inflationary effect more than we're already experiencing. And I'm telling you this not to give people panic, but to let you understand that there is instability, and it will ripple down in different ways depending on where you are. But it can be used as a tool to enact a plan or to execute a certain way. Continuing, Middle East, North Africa, Egypt, third Gaza-bound aid convoy enters Rafah crossing from Egypt. So they've managed to get some food and water convoys into the Palestinian Strip. Israel mounts limited Gaza ground raids as troops mass on the border. And this is where it can get ugly, because the Israelis are going to go for blood if they go in there. Their mandate right now, the IDF, is to completely remove Hamas from existence. And this is something they fully intend to do. They're pissed off right now, and it'll definitely be an issue at some point. So whether they continue to do limited ground raids, like targeted assaults to get hostages and to hit special targets, or if they come sweeping in, it's hard to say. The unfortunate thing is there are a lot of civilians trapped there. They cannot get out. They tried to go to Egypt, but Egypt was like, well, you have to go to this camp, and then Hamas blocked them, because it's in Hamas's interest to run up the civilian casualties as well, because that looks terrible in the news. So this is just going to get more confounded. And again, my concern is with China's ships and Iran and all these other players, someone's going to screw up, or someone's going to deliberately provoke someone to escalate. Right? Now, as far as why someone would want this shit, I would simply say follow the money. Who's going to make the most money? Or who's going to get power? They kind of go hand in hand. But anyway, I digress. Other news going into South and Central Asia, there was a train collision in Bangladesh. Based on this, it seems like incompetence on the part of the train managing entity, whatever they are. India, students from JNU and Delhi University are detained trying to hold a protest near the Israeli embassy. So keep in mind, this is a country that really doesn't have a dog in the race with Israel or Ukraine, but they just arrested a bunch of students for going after the Israeli embassy. We're going to continue to see this. This is part of the reason why State Department issued the global terror alert, because Canadians, US, UK, NATO countries were not exactly popular in a lot of places. So if you're traveling, take these kind of things into account. In the now Western Hemisphere, a little closer to home, the Argentina's Peronists soar in election after a runoff. Argentina's ruling Peronist coalition smashed expectations to lead the country's general election on Sunday, setting off a stage for a polarized runoff between economy minister Sergio Massa and far-right libertarian radical Javier Milano, or I think I misstated his name. Anyway, again, Argentina's a big economy. They're a big nation, they're a regional power, and they're having a very contentious election. And Brazil just went through that. It's a lot of really extreme left versus right. It's not the usual blah, 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 we'll talk shit, and then, okay, the election's over, everyone move on. The results of the election will resonate in the streets for months this next couple of years, which bothers me. Canada, Seaway workers, St. Lawrence Seaway workers are now going to go on strike. You're going to see more of that as well. Long border waits for also hinder commuters going south into Mexico. So Mexico, U.S., with the immigration issues, just creating a backlog. And again, supply chain. These are the kind of things you want to be aware of. Venezuela, Machado claims win in Venezuelan opposition's presidential primary. Whether the opposition is actually going to get into office is hard to say, because truthfully, we all know it's a communist country. They're just going to run off and arrest the opposition. But and they have a bunch of security reports that I did not print out because I want to read them and make sure I'm not revealing anything that could get someone else hurt. Security implications in Gaza, security implications in Egypt. There's just a lot of, and travel advisories in places like Iraq and Lebanon. Lebanon, actually, American citizens have been told to get the hell out of Lebanon now, too. A lot of instability, a lot of issues. At the very least, these are going to affect supply chain and availability. I said it this morning, other channels are saying it. Get your meds, get your food if you can. Pick a subject each night, and then take a disciplined approach by going through what you need, deciding what is or is not important, prioritize, and then go for that. Don't stretch yourself too thin. Now's a bad time to do it because we don't know what's going to happen in the coming months. but there's a hell of a lot of political instability in this particular report that kind of surprised me. And again, that is a tool. You want to destabilize your foe internally. Keep in mind, during World War II, prior to the outbreak of World War II, the Germans went and found Lenin, who had been run off by the Tsar, and imported him back into Russia to basically take Russia out of the fight. I'm sorry, World War One. And that's exactly what happened. Lenin was put back into the Russian sphere, if you will, and basically created the Red Revolution and took the Tsar down. And with that, took Russia out of World War One, which was in Germany and Austria-Hungary's favor. Whether that is the plan here, I don't know. But again, creating instability internal to a country is a great way to set them off kilter before taking an action against them. So folks, pay attention to what's going on out there. Pay attention to your local area and demographic. I know my demographic is largely, believe it or not, well, Hispanic, I guess white, if you call white constitutes like 10 different cultures, but anyway, Hispanic, Anglo, white, whatever you want to say. There's some black folks out here, and there's actually a little Vietnamese population out here, which is really cool, and Koreans. And I kind of know what the population is, right? So if I suddenly see a bunch of guys from Russia show up here, and I can hear their accent in the street, and I know enough of the language to recognize it, even though I may not speak it very well, that's going to be a flag. And I'm using this as an example. I'm not trying to be stereotypical. I'm just saying, you know what's in your area. You live in Brooklyn, there are a bunch of Russians there and a bunch of Jewish people there, right? And Polish folks. You suddenly get, you know, some weird country shows up there, and you're like, where the hell did you guys come from? That's a change in your demographic. Now, it could be a natural change, you know, new immigrant groups come in. That does happen. But how it happens and how they come in can give you a warning as to what may be shifting in your community. And again, it's not to create xenophobia, but to create an awareness of what normally happens in your area, right? You see a bunch of guys wearing gang colors that you've never seen in your area before, you may have a problem, right? So again, paying attention to changes in your local area, both demographically, socially, culturally, is a good way to understand what may be happening and how things can change. So anyway, folks, again, not meant to panic, but to give you intel, information that you can then take an action plan with and execute on. So folks, be good, be safe out there, keep out of trouble, and keep your head on a swivel, as we always say. You never know what's going to happen. You know, pray for the best, prepare for the worst. God bless, Godspeed, and I will see you all later on.